All right, welcome to the Champions Way podcast, helping men live the life of a champion in all aspects of life, professional, personal, physical, and financial. I have the man, the myth, the legend, Dan Januzzi back here with me, and I got Scott Stuch here. Scott, nice to have you, man.
Yeah, nice to be on with you guys. We were trying to get this going for a while. I was really looking forward to it. Glad we waited because good things come to people that are patient.
Amen, man. So to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background, so Scott has his own podcast, Stepping Up with Stuch, and he's your recovery from alcoholism is very interesting, and I think it's very much worth sharing that a lot of guys can benefit from. You know, I'll let you tell the story. So take the floor, tell us a little about yourself. I know you got your podcast and you're doing some other side stuff, so let's intro that and let's get into the story, man. See what value we can provide.
So just a short version of my story is grew up in a family business I was born into. When I was like just born, my father got an opportunity to open a bar restaurant. My mother, family friend, gave them an opportunity. They monopolized up the opportunity. My dad was one of the first people in Northeast Pennsylvania to bring chicken wings to the area in 1984. A place you can come and sit down with a family, and the father could have a beer and watch the football game itself. His family around him, rather than just sitting at a bar. So bringing a family atmosphere to, a culture where you would normally just go to a bar and have some wings and beers with the guys in the 80s. My dad brought like a family concept to the area and was one of the originators to bring wings to Northeast PA. So I grew up in that. He was very successful. He branched out on his own in like 1987. I was about 3 years old. And then had his business for 37 years. We closed it down last February. Um, when it comes to my life story, I can go all these different channels and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna, keep it short and sweet, right to the point. Growing up, I had like I said, my family was very successful when I was a kid. My parents got divorced when I was 13. That kind of took a mental toll on me for a little bit. I was able to engage my inner anger and frustrations and being upset and depressed. I became a standout local hockey player. And that kind of was like a void filler for me for my early teenage years until I hit about 16. Then I started hitting the gym. Wanted to, incorporate working out, get a little bit bigger. Hockey's a rough sport, so you want to have a lot of muscle on you. And I took on the role as being an enforcer and a scorer, so I'd have some muscle on me to.
Power forward.
Yep. So yeah, I played hockey. I was in I grew up in the era in my high school, Fast and Furious stage. Me and Dan wasted a lot of money on our cars back in the day. Um, but
Had a lot of fun doing it, though.
yeah, we wanted to be Vin Diesel with hair.
I was.
But so me and Dan like kind of knew each other for like 20 years because I would see him down the gym. He was like 10 years older than me. He was the generation that like when I was a younger teenager, the guys looked up to. Like when I was 16, he was in his, mid 20s, and you kind of wanted to be like those guys. Those were the guys out at the clubs. Those were the guys that were in the best shape. They had the cool cars and all that stuff. And that's how me and Dan kind of got acquainted with one another over the years, just seeing each other from cruising down the Ave or being at the gym. And we were both like pretty local athletes, so you kind of just, our valley's kind of small, so you kind of just you learn, you get in the mix of people. So then upon going into my late teenage years, I suffered a real bad injury. I split my ankle in half, and it wasn't a hockey injury. It was after my one game. I was at travel hockey. I got tied up on some laundry with flip flops on, and I fell on my steps and crushed my ankle in half. So I was out for like almost a year and a half, and I started hanging out with this crew of people when I was like, it was about like I was about 20. Through high school, I didn't go to any parties. I didn't really associate myself because, like I said, my parents got divorced. So most of the time, my dad was a business owner because he took the business, and my parents got split up. Uh, my mom would have mostly custody of us, but I was in my dad's school district, but I didn't live up there most of the time. And a lot of the people I hung out with were down, south of where, I live. So I had like a kind of a mixed group, but I didn't I didn't like go to parties on Friday nights. I would go to like open hockey, or I'd be cruising the Ave. I'd be doing sober fun stuff. But when I was like 20 and I broke my ankle, I started hanging out with this crew of guys, not like Dan's group and them. They introduced me to, starting to drink. It brought the girls around, built my self confidence up a little bit because growing up, I like went up and down in weight a lot when I was a kid. And I kind of was like a little self conscious of myself because when I was in my bigger stages, I was like insecure of myself. But then when I got too small, I felt like I was weak and I was insecure of myself too. So like I never really like found that happy medium. But to find out later on in life, that was just my mindset. I could just never be satisfied with the person I am. I always want more, no matter if I am in good shape or I am in a good financial state or I am in a good mindset. I never get complacent. So that was just my mindset at an early age. But these guys kind of that I was hanging out with, they made me feel good about myself. They were, we're going over Stuch's house, we're going to party down there. And then, the girls would come and they were popular guys and stuff like that. And started power drinking with them. And that's how I learned how to drink, was just chugging liquor out of a bottle. And Dan could attest to that. Like most of our area, that's how everybody pre-gamed before they went out to the clubs. Right, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely, man. But again, all the stuff you're saying, all I hear is perfectionist mindset. Could never make yourself feel content with yourself. And there's a difference between always being hungry, wanting more, and the line of you were just unhappy with yourself and constantly trying to do things to make yourself feel better about yourself, when realistically, like, as you've matured as an adult, you know that none of those things are ultimately going to bring you, none of those addictions are going to bring you the feeling that you're trying to get to. And the person you've become, your work ethic, all the success you've had recently is because you started to become aware of what your issues were, you identified it, and you started working towards, the idea of, instead of me just trying to wash away the negative thoughts through a substance, you're now just going to outwork and out hustle everybody else to gain that success. And sometimes, like we've always talked, some people like us were just stubborn, and you've got to go through, even though somebody might have been giving you the right advice, you had to be somebody that went through all those struggles on your own and to learn them yourself, so that you could identify the problem and become, the man you are now and the man you're continuing to round out to be. So I mean, I think all of those are good talking points, because I think everything that, me and Sam have always discussed about that perfectionist mindset, every bad thing that happened to me and everything that I made tougher on myself to go through in life was all because of having that I'm never good enough. No matter how good I am, no matter how successful I am, no matter how good I do something, I should be doing better, and not allowing yourself to just feel good about an accomplishment or feel good about where you're at in life just because, just because you should feel good about it. And I think we've all gotten to a point in our lives now where we know we're not going to fall into that negative rut, because if it gets bad enough, we're just going to call each other and talk ourselves back into the right mindset. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to not get too far off of where we left off though. So then, after that, I had a couple of years where I felt like, I was growing up in the club era. Everybody went out, you had to be in really good shape. I mean, you didn't have to, but, you stood out. And,
Yeah,
our local, group, I'd want to say, everybody was in good shape. Everybody dressed well. We played the part. The camaraderie that came with it, the girls that came with it, not to sound sexist or anything like that. I mean, it was all kind of like feeding the ego and making you not have that insecurity of yourself no more. And I mean, like when I was drinking, like if I wasn't drinking, like I wouldn't have half the courage back then to go up to some of the girls that I went up with. I mean, when I used to drink, it took me to a different level of high that I feel like I could run through walls. I could do whatever I want, and you know, as time progressed, my drinking got heavier. I started getting arrested when I was in my early 20s. I got arrested quite a few times. Um, Starting unnecessary fights, controversy, negativity. it was no longer, which I couldn't identify back then, but I can draw a timeline now, is when I got about like 26, 27, because um, after I broke my ankle, to go back to that part, after I broke my ankle, I was out for like a year and a half. I came to a point with myself that all I cared about, because I went like from a cast to a walking boot and a walking boot to, you know, whatever, but I couldn't get on skates for another year and a half. So I was like mobile enough to walk around, but I couldn't go play hockey. So not understanding back then, but I do now, I took the easy route and I said, well, I'm not going to go to college. I'm just going to, you know, my dad makes a pretty good living for himself. I'm just going to take on the family business. So I started getting into management with him, and I was bartending and, once again, drinking heavy after work, during work, making easy money. It wasn't the best money, but it was more than the if you want to say our local average. I would say I would rank myself as a middle class person at 20 years old, was more than my friends were making, but didn't realize that like all my friends were going to college, and they eventually, their time was coming as I was just washing away time. So, in 3-4 years from now, when I'm in my late or my mid 20s, everybody's starting to graduate from college. They took that safe route. They're going into their career landing professions. They're building a house with the white picket fence and the developments. They're doing this, they're doing that. I'm still Scott working for his father. I'm just living me. I'm doing life. I'm sleeping all day, waking up, maybe going to the gym here and there at like 26, 27, waking up, going through the motions of life, hitting the gym less. My work performance was going down. I was increasing my drinking. And that was right around the era of like 2011. My mom suddenly passed away at 48 of congestive heart failure. And that just took me on a way downward spiral. I started increasing my drinking more. Friends that were friends of mine for years stopped wanting to come around. Nobody wanted to be around me. I'd want to start fights with people. I was in such a deep down
State of
negative,
depression. It's a state of
yeah,
depression.
depression,
Yeah.
angry, miserable, upset, unaccomplished. I mean, I had it coming from all angles. And I tried getting away a couple times of the restaurant industry, and I just had to keep going back. And then, I went to school. I got, wait, let me go back to that. So right around, finally, after my last hospitalization, I was like 33. And finally, me and my father went into a business together when my daughter was conceived. When I was like 30, we were going to open up a business together. So I actually had something to like look forward to, and I saved my money, he saved his money, and we went into business. Supposed to be together, but it just caused a bunch of unnecessary turmoil, because your father's going to always look at you as you're his, you're his little boy.
Right.
He's not going to look at you like a man. I mean, I'm not saying everybody, but I would say the majority. A person who's been in business over 35 years is not really going to take advice off his son. So, it came with a lot of arguments, headaches, heartaches. And here I am once again when, it wasn't a split decision, when it stopped giving me stuff to look forward to. I started picking up the bottle and, having a case of the I don't cares. I don't care what happens. I'm just going to, I'll work throughout the night. And then at the end of the night, I'm going to party with the staff. I'm going to be the party guy. I'm going to be the guy everybody thinks is cool, be the guy that everybody, and then it got to the point once again where it progressed to the point where nobody wanted to be around me. Everybody was nervous being around me. They didn't know what I was going to do next when I would black out. Multiple arrests, stuff like that. And then finally I cleaned myself up at like 33. I woke up in a hospital bed, almost died. The doctor said if I was like a young woman that was, 100 pounds, my alcohol level probably would have killed her. So I was like 1 or 2 drinks away from death. Almost went into a coma. Finally just said like enough's enough. I went to my first AA meeting, did it for like a month, and COVID hit. And I decided that I need to start figuring out my life outside of the restaurant. So I'm looking to, I have a 3-year-old kid at this point. I have a fiance. I'm on my own. I couldn't just fold. I couldn't go to rehab. I couldn't let them down because they relied on my income to live.
Yeah.
So I didn't have time to go to rehab. I didn't have the time to do that. So I started going to meetings. I talked to a couple people that worked the program before. Like I said, I did it for a month. It just wasn't for me. I don't knock anybody that did it. There is some stuff that I took some of the tools out of there and applied them still to this day, but it just didn't work for me. It was a lot of people I noticed in there for years, just all still feeling sorry for themselves. And I say this very humbling. When you're in a poor mindset, it wasn't the alcohol. In my opinion, picking up the alcohol was a choice. It was a bad decision and a bad choice on my behalf. But it was because of where the mindset I was at. I was going through some severe mental health issues. And if you go back to what I talked about with playing the hockey and all the other stuff, I was still battling mental health when I was in my teenage years, but I didn't bring alcohol into the equation. I was playing hockey, I was boxing, I was weightlifting, I was fixing up cars. I was doing positive things to cope with my mental health issues. The alcohol became a void filler and an ego builder, and it just got spiraled out of control. But if I would have got the right mental health or talked to the right people back when I was going through those struggles, I don't think my story would have played out like it did. But I'm happy it did because it made me the person who I am today, and it was God's plan. So to finish up the story, when I was 34, I went back to school and I said, you know what, like I can't sit here and go back to school for 4 to 6 years, go get an MBA or anything like that. I don't have the time to be doing that. My kid's 3. I'm missing her grow up. I started working minimum wage jobs just to get out of the restaurant industry to protect myself. I was working sweeping floors for $18 an hour in a factory. I was donating plasma. I was doing this, doing that. And then I decided I'm going to go to school and go get my CDL. After I was like 6 months sober, I'm like, my head's on straight. I'm going to do something. Like my mind was always racing, but I kept myself occupied in positive ways. So I went, I looked into school. I got my CDL in 6 months, still did all these side jobs and was doing what I had to do to survive in the meantime. I did the CDL route for like 2 years. It started bringing me more financially. It was building me up financially, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I would drive on these lonely, dark roads at night with these big tractor trailers. I had anxiety. I was lonely. I was depressed, but it was paying the bills. So that part of my brain was satisfied because I was actually working one job finally after 34 years and being able to pay all the bills and not be in the hole enough that I have to do other side jobs to pay the bills. And me and Dan were working out the one day, and I was on my 8th CDL job in 2 years because I kept chasing better schedule, better pay, less travel time, more time home, trying to balance out being a father. And so Dan advised me, he's like, why don't you come start selling cars with me? And I'm like, what are you, nuts? I'm like, I don't know anything really about cars. I mean, I know how to buy stuff online and fix up cars back in the day, but I don't know much about cars. And he's like, but you're good with talking to people. You know how to talk to people. You're good. I'm telling you, like I was a talent scout for 20 years for GNC. Like you got it in you. Just believe in yourself. And after like a good hard month of negotiating, he built up my self-confidence enough to make that decision and got me the opportunity. And I never looked back, and I'm 14 months in now, and my life's totally made a 180 for itself. And that's who I am today.
That's awesome, man. That's a great story. It sounds like, I think, for you, it's you need a future to look forward to, which is the case for a lot of people. But it sounds like all those moments were, whether it was your broken ankle, and you didn't really have anywhere to turn, and then as you got older, and there was a dead end with the business, and all of those things just kept unfolding. So, let me ask you this: what was it that helped you kick everything? Was it that instant when it happened, when you were in the hospital, or is it just because you had mentioned, right, you didn't want to sit in those AA meetings, you didn't want to sit in the sorrow and then feeling sorry for yourself? What about you brought you out of that?
It was a process, I'll tell you that. I really just kind of didn't have a decision really. I spent a lot of time on the road, and when I got my CDL, and I just kind of started focusing more on wanting to get out of this hole that I was in. Always paying my bills late, having bad credit, living like an addict. I didn't want to have that life anymore. I didn't want to keep letting people down, and you know, having a couple drinks on the weekend, and then it turning into an all weekend blackout affair, and then on Monday have that high anxiety. What did you do? Is there going to you get have papers in the mail that get sent to you that you got arrested again? That racing thoughts and the panic attacks and the anxiety. It was just such a vicious cycle. And the amount of alcohol that I would drink when I would go on those binges, how sick I would be for days straight. Barely able to, drink water. It was no way to live. And I knew if I continued that life, I would have followed in the legacy of my mother and probably wouldn't have made it out of my 40s if I even made it to my 40s. At the route I was at back then.
And now you're at a point to where you can actually have a couple of drinks and still be in control and not go to that extreme, right?
Well, I did I'm not going to sit there and sugarcoat it or lie. I came to an epiphany with myself. I hit my my fourth year sober back in May of this year. Over the summer, I, had a lot of time to think. Me and Dan talked about it a while. I mean, we're best friends. We talk about a lot of personal things together. Sometimes I help Dan out of his ruts, and he helps me out of a lot of mine. I think our advice just feeds off one another because we have a lot of similarities. So I told him, I was like, man, I was like, I'm tired of living in such a black and white lifestyle. With me, with my addictive personality, it's either all or nothing. And this is like with anything. Like if somebody brings pizza to the house, like I can literally eat the whole tray if I want to. Like I have no self-control sometimes. And it's like the one extreme to the other. And it's building that mental health or building that strong mental strength, to let yourself know, like, where it's going to take you, what it's going to do, and everything like that. So I told him, I was like, Dan, I was like, because Dan had, shared with me that, he had a similar situation and he took a little break for a while and then came back into it. And I was like, I'm just gonna follow the rules of sobriety that I learned at AA years ago. I mean, I feel like, having an exit plan, I told him, like, I'm going to try and have a couple drinks. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It was a special occasion. Me and my fiance were going somewhere. We stopped having date nights because we were avoiding going out to like public places and socializing. Mm-hmm. And that was never me. I never ran from anything. And I felt like I was running away from hiding from, the alcoholism, but not realizing that my head's in a way different place than it is now than it's ever been in my life. And my mental strength, my physical strength, everything is going up. And, a lot of people say like they pay too much attention to the calendar years in the sobriety game, calendar years. And that's why I feel like it's a lot of pressure on people that are addicts that if they, slip up and have one drink at a wedding or something, well, oh, you just broke it. You just wasted all that sober time. You just wasted all that sober time. I feel as though a relapse is when you take your life to the worst point you ever were at and you go back to that sort of lifestyle. In my opinion, that's a relapse. Not having a couple drinks and being able to control yourself. I know my limitations. I know not to go near any hard liquor. I know not to go near any certain things that trigger me off. And the main thing is the last year of my life, having something to look forward to my future, which is the automotive industry. And that's where I'm passionate. That's where I'm passionate with my lifestyle. It's not even about anything with money or anything like that. It's something that I'm truly passionate about. And I enjoy going to work. I look forward to going to work. I feel as though when I used to drink at my last couple of years of the last stages of my life, or the last stages of what took me to sobriety, there was a lot of living in the past, looking at the old times, going to clubs with my friends, getting all hyped up, thinking about my mother, thinking about this. Instead of like, I feel like when you start living in the past, you're just letting the present go by and you're not building yourself for a future. And there's more things I have to look forward to now than I didn't back then. So, like, when you get your mind right, it kind of puts you in a different place. And I could see, I maybe drank like 3 times this year. I stuck with one certain thing. I stuck with those truly hard seltzers. I had a couple of them, and I the one day I had the couple that I maybe one or two more than I should have, and I didn't feel too good the next day. But I wasn't waking up trying to drink again. I wasn't trying to put myself in a dark hole. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't, but like it's like one of those things where like I'm not making reservations to do it again anytime soon. But if the time comes up and I'm away for my birthday and I feel like doing it, I might just do it. I mean, you only live once, but some people look at it differently from an AA standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel as though like you need to be accountable for yourself. A lot of people in this day and age, in this generation, nobody holds themselves accountable. And that's one thing I learned in sobriety. There's a lot of the name game. Oh, well, my wife cheated on me, so it justifies me blacking out. I lost my job I had for 20 years. It justifies me for jerk. At the end of the day, you got to hold yourself accountable for your own actions. If you fuck up your life, that's on you. If you do things, like there's some people that are in my family that I told them that I was going to go and probably have a few drinks back in September. There's a lot of people that didn't agree with it. But you know what I said? If I put myself back into a ditch, that's on me. I'm the one that pulled myself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one that made myself who I am today. So I'm the one that's going to suffer the consequences. Not you, not her, not him, me. I got to hold myself accountable.
I just want to jump in for a second because I'm sitting here listening to all the stuff Scott says, and obviously I've known both of you guys for a very long time, and I'd like to think I had a positive impact on you guys, but that's just me doing my social responsibility at the fact that I'm older than you guys, and being that I went through some hard times myself. I do believe the people that go through the hardest times and can pull themselves out of it become those are the people that should put themselves in a situation where they can be a life coach, at least mentor and help their friends, give suggestions. I mean, even with Scott talking about, this moment where he got into the car business, Scott knows that for years prior to that, every time I ran into him, I was trying to give him good advice and steer him in the right direction because I saw a similarity in some of his behaviors as to what I had. But I'm sitting here listening to everything that Scott's saying, and being in control of a substance, being in control of perfectionism. The reason why you are in control and I felt confident that you were going to be okay going and having a couple drinks is because it comes down to what's your goals, right? When you're living in the moment, when you describe in those early 20s and stuff like that, your main goal was, yes, you wanted to make money, but your main goal every day when you woke up was, where's the next party at? When am I going to start drinking? When are we going to have a good time? Where's the fun at? The difference now is that your goals and your mindset is shifted to, you're in control of that because your goals and mindset are much further than, where am I going to go party tonight? Where am I going to go party tomorrow? You now have short-term goals. You have couple-year goals. You have 5 and 10 year goals. It's so important to have those because that's what keeps you focused. That's what keeps your mind aligned. And I'm just going to bring it up because of what you were talking about. Last night, I was at a Christmas party. I was the only person out of about 100, 120 people at this party that didn't have a drink. And everybody there thought I was drunk because I was laughing, giggling, having fun with everybody. And it's not that I have a problem. I can have a drink whenever I want. It's not in control of me because of where my life goals are at. But I can have just as much fun because what was on my mind last night was, besides enjoying the time I had, was I knew we had this podcast to do today. I know what that, if I have too many drinks, what I'm going to feel like today. And we just become wiser as we get older. I mean, it's the biggest thing is, if you're observant and you're paying attention to yourself, you care about yourself and your family more than you, that's when you can be in control of any substance. You can be in control because you have control of your mind. The mind is the hardest thing to control when you're younger. Definitely as men, we struggle with more attention span issues, more fitting in issues, more, we have the desire to be the alpha male in situations and be in control of situations. Once you get control of your mind, it's just, life is just so much better because you don't need the alcohol to be fulfilled. You don't need other things to be fulfilled. You have your goals to make you feel fulfilled. You have your goals, and the fact that you have a higher level of what your concerns, your priorities now are my fiance and my daughter, my family. That's my priority. So no matter what, you could go out and do anything and put yourself in any situation because you've now matured mentally and emotionally into the mindset that you're in control of yourself. And I just wanted to bring that up just because, those are all things that I struggle with myself. And, even the way Scott brought up some of those things, I would think, Sam, even in my time that I spent with you, when I met you, you were, just a college kid going to school for exercise science, and you had a goal of going off and doing X, Y, and Z. And, within a year or two of hanging out, your life kind of veered towards a different direction, because it's all of our jobs and our responsibilities to mentor our friends if they need it, people around us, and eventually just anybody that needs help. Because life experience is always going to be the best way to help people, but it's also a matter of having that ability to identify the fact that you're aware of yourself. And I was just talking about this with my girlfriend last night and this morning, that it truly is until you become aware of yourself and your actions and how they affect other people. To me, you're not mature. I was still affecting people negatively in my late 20s and early 30s because I didn't shift my mindset completely to where it's at now. Had a lot of good advice. Feel like I did a lot of good things. Was very successful a lot of things, but didn't get to the point where I was truly self-sacrificing and selfless until I was in my early 30s because getting therapy for me, going through those hiccups and coming out of them stronger, it takes some of that for some of us. Thankfully, I've known Sam since he was like 19 years old. Sam hasn't had to go through a lot of this. He's gone through other struggles, but some people, and that's why I think it's so important what Scott does with his podcast. I've been fully supportive of it since he started it because there's so many people out there that had similar problems, similar issues, and still have not been able to get themselves out of it. I see guys in our, mine and Scott's area that are still struggling with stuff they were struggling with 15, 20 years ago. And those are all the people that I want to reach and help and affect, in a positive way. And I know Scott wants to do the same thing. And, Sam, you creating a platform, just to be able to speak out. I know how many people you've affected positively, with the life coaching business that we help develop, like the things that we do, me jumping on the calls, me seeing what you've done with a lot of the clients. It just shows me how powerful of an impact one human can have on other people by just being grounded, having emotional control, and being self-aware. So I spitballed for a little bit. I just wanted to step in and bring that up.
No, you hit upon a bunch of good points, and to Scott's point too. I think it's something that Scott, you mentioned like you were living in the past, and every time you were reaching for that, you were living in the past. It's the people that I work with. I tell them what you focus on, you feel. So if we focus on negativity, we're going to feel negativity. If we focus on, you know, things that happened in the past that make us feel, depressed, anxious, that's what we're going to feel. Versus what I think it's really awesome to hear your story of how you're able to shift the mindset. You have an empowering future to look forward to.
Well, Sam, to pause you right there, I mean, another thing too is I had a lot of negative people around me. I had a lot. Now I realize that they weren't really my friends. A lot of the advice that was given to me back then was poor advice because they didn't want to see me get ahead of them. They wanted to drain me dry, and they like seeing me down. They like seeing me be a beggar. They like seeing me at the
Misery
weak
loves
points.
misery.
That's right. And it makes them feel better about themselves if they're more successful than you. But the thing is, like now, rather than when I used to run and hide, and if I'd start getting a little anxious or I'd start feeling a little stressed or I'd start feeling a little depressed, rather than go hide in a bottle, what I do now is I'll get a notepad and be like, why am I feeling stressed right now? Like I still get anxiety till this day. I still get depressed. I still get stressed. But you know what I'll do? I identify the problem within myself. I'll sit there and I'll write it down or I'll think about it. When I'm in bed, I don't turn on my TV anymore. I'll sit there and think about it. What is making you depressed right now? What could you do to change it? And that comes part of back to what I was originally saying with Dan about living in that black and white. Me and my fiance's relationship was super rocky the past year. Not understanding that, I was so avoidance of wanting to go out and have a meal because and just enjoying each other's company. We were avoiding going out because of all that, because I was like, all right, well, I don't want to go to a bar. I don't want to do this. But realizing the only way to defeat the bully is to beat the bully. And
Yep.
by me facing the problem, I mean, a lot of people will disagree with this, and that's fine. And once again, I want to go back to the AA topic. If AA has statistically saved a lot of people's lives, and I am not here to knock AA. I am not here to say it's not a program that doesn't work, because there's still some tools that I use to this day, including the steps, how you should live your lifestyle. Um, I got a lot of positivity out of it, but there is some people that treat the program a little bit the wrong way. And I feel as though that causes their relapses. And like I said, if somebody has a drink, like, I mean, so if you decide to wake up one day and you're quote unquote labeled an alcoholic, and you have a beer and you go to bed, they're going to say, okay, well, you did it that day, but eventually you're going to go back to what it is where you were at. Eventually, if one beer turns into a week from now 2, and then you're drinking 3 days a week, then you're drinking 4 days a week, and then they talk about that. But that's going against step 3 or 4. I'm not sure exactly which one it is, but I think it's step 3 or 4 of the Alcoholic Anonymous book, which is you cannot be the director and the actor in the movie of your life, meaning that you cannot play God in the acting person. So who are they to predict to you if you're going to take it to that extreme? Maybe statistically, because of people not getting to the core of the problem, what is really making them drink to that excess? What is really, like, maybe they might be working in that warehouse job that took, and there's nothing wrong with that. The wheels got to spin in the world, and everybody has their place. But if you have that guy that right out of high school got into a warehouse job because it was a decently above average, above minimal wage hourly job, and took the safe route, but every day for 30 years hates going to that fucking 9 to 5, he's going to internally be miserable with himself. And that's why he comes home and drinks a case of beer every night.
Yes.
If he would get the chance to step up to the plate and be like, I'm done with this. I'm going to take a risk for once in my life. I'm going to step up. I'm going to do what I got to do what I want to do, to be passionate about my life, be happy with my life, and make those sacrifices, rather than just curl up in a ball and becoming complacent because it's the safe route to take. But internally you're miserable. It all comes where you're at mentally and where you're at internally. I don't care what anybody says. And I mean, I could be wrong. I don't have no PhD. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't specialize in drugs and alcohol counseling. All I know is I know what worked for me. And if it works for me, who is anybody else to criticize it?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a real important part. Again, it goes back to, like, if you take that example, the guy in the warehouse job who hates his life, there's two things that I pull away from that. It's one, again, he has no future that he can look forward to. And that's, I think it's critical. You're able to find that for yourself. You're able to identify that, which a lot of people don't. They, like you said, they just stay in the safe spot. And the fear of failure is one of the things that will stop people from taking leaps to move their lives forward. And then the other,
but those same people, sorry, Sam, but those same people will be the ones telling you when you want to take a risk.
right,
That's a bad idea. Don't do that.
right,
That's a bad idea, because they don't have the balls to do it themselves.
right, exactly.
But they don't want to see you succeed.
Yeah, and it's so critical, because in today's world, it's everybody wants to do the safe thing, because it's, again, it feels comfortable. And especially as you get older, that friction feeling that happens when you step out of your comfort zone, it magnifies even more. When you're younger, you're able to go back and forth through different things, and as you get older, it gets harder internally, mentally, and emotionally, because we have all these different life events and all these self-beliefs, self-doubts, and everything just piles on top of themselves. And then there was a second point on what you hit on. I can't remember if it comes to me, I'll bring it up. But yeah, I mean, bottom line, man, I think you hit the nail right on the head, man. You're able to make that shift for yourself internally to be able to have that future look forward to. And that's ultimately when anytime people are trying to make an adjustment, a change in their life, it has to go towards a future that makes them feel fulfilled, makes them want to do something. Because if you hate your job, you hate waking up, all these, you're going to find an escape route. And the instant gratification is drugs and alcohol, and I think that was my other point, is it sounds like a lot of the struggles you had was you didn't really have any of the coping skills, the techniques, and now you have the journal, you're processing stuff. Why am I feeling this way? And you're taking more productive routes rather than just that instant gratification. It's a shout out to you, man, to be able to overcome all of that, and the strength and the internal mindset to have everything like that.
And I
I'll
and I,
tell you. I mean,
I
go ahead,
just
Dan.
want to speak up real quick. You know what I mean? And this is definitely just given proper credit to Scott. I believe what happened because I've known you for so long. The shift in Scott was he went from feeling sorry about himself and his situation where he's an alcoholic to once he got through those initial phases of getting himself cleaned up was he started to become selfless, right? That's Sam, our first podcast talked about management and how much the right kind of management, it's because you're selfless to your team.
Right.
Your team is more important than you. Scott shifted all of his misery and hatefulness towards himself to I'm going to be selfless and help other people get over it. And I can tell you, it's why I have so much respect for Scott and you two guys. And I'm saying it here, you two guys are the only guys that when I'm having a moment or I need to talk something out, you two are the guys that I call. Sam, because you, as watching you grow from being 19, you're probably the most emotional controlled male at your age than anybody I've ever met. And Scott, it's because he's gone through some similar things at different stages than I did in my life. But it was when he had that break to become, selfless to where, I mean, listen, I'll be at the gym with Scott and he throws our workouts off because he sees somebody that he either knows from AA or knows is going through a bad time, and he's not best friends with them. He's not like in their social circle, but he'll take the time to go over and talk to them for 15, 20 minutes in the middle of our workout. And it's only because of my understanding of what he's trying to do and what he's trying to be for that person that I'm just like, all right, and I'll keep doing sets. He jumps back in. But everywhere we're at, we could be at work, we could be at the gym, we could meet up somewhere else. And if he sees somebody else struggling with something, he's so selfless that he goes over and he absorbs that person's, what they're going through, gives them good advice, puts them back on the right path. And I believe that's when you've hit a certain level of personal growth to where when Scott was having those conversations with me, thinking about going and having a drink because he wanted to have a better relationship with his fiance and stop feeling controlled, that he has to be in this black and white area. It's why I gave you that, Scott. I think you're going to be fine, bro. You're going to be fine. If you have any hiccups, you can call me. But it was because internally I've seen his growth as an adult and as a person, and to where now, he's a guy who can be a mentor for other people and life coach other people through because he is selfless. He wants to help everybody around him and he puts other people's struggles and what they're going through above his own. And once you become selfless in that manner, you're not going to fall back into that hole. You might have a moment, but you know who to call when you're having that moment. And it's not that you're going to fall back into that, but you're having a moment where you need some reassurance. All of us do. Every life coach I've ever met, even the guys that are making tens of millions of dollars a year, have somebody they talk to just about their thoughts and about what they're going through because people like us have become aware enough of themselves to where we know what we do, how it impacts other people. We know how even the smallest thing we do can impact our daughter, our child, our significant other, our family. And not everybody's aware of that stuff, and I think all of us, each of us, have had conversations with each other where we're talking about stuff, and it's just because we're aware of stuff, and there's still a lot of adults that aren't aware of their actions. I'm laughing. I was at this party last night, and that's all me and my girlfriend could talk about this morning is all these people are in their 40s and how unaware of a lot of these people are of themselves. They're just completely unaware of themselves, how their behavior is, how it affects other people. And I'm just so happy I went through those growth stages in my life. And just being somebody that saw Scott struggling through those points and see where he's at now, it allows me to sit back and be very proud you know, of being friends with you guys, being close with you guys, and what you're doing for other people. I think that's our greatest contribution. Being humans on Earth is contributing towards a future generation, contributing anything we can towards positive energy put out in the universe. Because I think we're all in the belief system that stuff comes back on us. So I just wanted to bring that up quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's um, what was I going to say? I wanted to
I'm gonna
go
jump in.
off. Go
I'll
ahead.
take the lead. So
Yeah,
because
go
one
ahead.
of the things too that I think is really cool too that you're able to do is, with that, a lot of people get caught with the I am statements. I am recovering. I am an alcoholic. I am this. And I think one of the cool things that you were able to do is you had that consideration. You've shifted away from that label. So many people get caught up on the label that they then just identify with the label and then that's their problem. And you didn't let that problem consume you. You
I did for a short period
yeah,
of time.
you did, but like that, but you made that switch. You see what I'm saying?
I accepted defeat, and
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, I'll just label myself as this, and this is what I'm going to be the rest of my life. And some people said like I was trying to talk to somebody that was working the program too, and we have different views on it, and I was saying that like I was starting to live a little bit miserable, and Dan knows like the misery, like me and my fiance became you know combative towards one another. We were like fighting and stuff. And I said like, and it wasn't that we were fighting that she wanted to go out and I didn't. It was the fact that I was putting no effort into the relationship. I was hiding from my own personal fears out of the past life, living in the past. And I said like, all I do is work and that's it. And I'm living miserable. And the kid that, is very active in the AA, he's like, well, you're a dry drunk. And I'm like, a dry drunk is somebody that walks around pissed off every day that they can't drink. I've drank in 3 times in the past 3 months, and no set dates. If it happened, it happened. It didn't, it didn't. Like Dan, I've gone to numerous parties in the past 3 months that I didn't drink at. I sat at home with just me and my fiance on a date night, had a couple drinks, spent some quality time together, watched a movie, and that was it. And I wasn't looking to like go sneak one the next day and stuff like that. But did I go all week? And was I pissed off at work all week that, man, I got to get out of here. I got to go to the bar. I got to go to the bar. Like, oh, this sucks. I can't drink today because I got work. That's a dry drunk. Not somebody that wants to live the gray area that's going to have the strength and the courage to be a risk taker. And I'm not giving this advice to anybody listening out there that's struggling with addiction, that's early on or anything like that, and saying, you know what, he's right. I'm going to go fuck up today. No, I don't condone that. I'm saying this is what worked for me, and I'm not giving encouragement to anybody or advice to do it either way. I'm just saying that I'm not like Dan knows me. I like chaos. I like working under pressure. Pressure to me is an adrenaline rush. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I like working under pressure. I mean, Dan see me close 3, 4 car deals in a day under a tremendous amount of pressure.
Well, dude, that's what it's all about. That's why I know you're in control of your situation, man. Even when you were commenting to me, and this might go back a year ago, that you weren't fully in belief of that AA because what you started observing was everybody just stays in the program because they want to feel sorry for themselves, and you just said, "Screw it, man! I'm just moving forward in my life, and I'm going to go back to wanting all the things I wanted when I was younger, but I'm going to do it controlled now." I'm going to do it controlled. I want to have the big house. I want to have money. I want to have financial security. I want to have close friends. But now you've identified who real friends and fake friends are. You've identified, because of your awareness of everything surrounding you, you've identified right from wrong. You know what's going to keep you going in the right direction. And I mean, from my perspective, and Sam knows I get juiced about this stuff because I've always liked helping people. And that's what I think our biggest common denominator between the three of us is, that we all want to help other people. We're all passionate about helping other people. We're all passionate about being successful, uber successful. So it's like when you have those common denominators, you're in more self-control. You have way more self-control, man. I mean, I just, personal growth wise, Scott, I mean, it's a big deal. I tell you about this, when it's just me and you, but even in this public forum, I'm just very proud of how far you came, man, because you're a shining example to a lot of other people. And when you look back on it 10, 15 years ago, your mindset was so off and confused and whatever else. I mean, it's just great to see where you've gotten to in life, man. And it's doing stuff like this, and I hope we can keep doing this every once in a while, even on different topics. But it's just great to be a part of a group of people and have close friends that are all about helping each other. Because when you become that selfless person, where you're more worried about the people that are closest to you, and helping other people, it's just, life becomes enjoyable, man. Like, I had such a good time last night, man. Didn't have one drink. I don't need to drink. I don't need to do drugs. I don't need to do anything. I just like being around people, seeing people happy, and knowing that, no, I'm not going to be influenced by anybody or what anybody's doing, because I have a bigger goal. What's my tomorrow going to look like? I want to feel good tomorrow, physically, mentally, spiritually. I knew we were doing this podcast. I wanted to be at the top of my game. I didn't care how much sleep I got last night, but I was going to keep my body and mind clean and feeling good, because this, to me, this is great energy. I'm going to work off this podcast for a week off the positive energy off this. I mean, Sam knows that because we spend so much time together working together. I'm fueled off of positive energy. That's how all people are. And that's what's sad, that we live in a society where, especially when you're growing up, the people you think are closest to you, most of the time, those are the people that they don't want to see you get any further ahead of them. Misery loves misery. They'll literally be the ones that sabotage you the most, and that's why it's so hard going through your teenage years, your early 20s and 30s. Like Sam, we talk about this all the time with life coaching. It's so hard socially, because you genuinely, you have to go through hard times, go through people that screw you over. It's just part of life. But once you really know who the people are that you need in your life and are going to be there now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, it's not going to matter. You've developed a relationship where, like both of you guys, there's been periods where, we're talking a couple days a week, we're working together, and then there's periods where we don't talk for a couple weeks. But I know at any point I could pick up the phone, jump on a call, talk to either one of you guys, and we pick up right where the last conversation was, right where the last goals were mutually. And that's a very synergistic, positive energy type of thing. And you guys both know I'm all about energy. I think you have to be in tune with your energy in the universe. And the more positive energy you put out, the more positive things you do, the more positivity you influence other people with. It just creates this energy and karma where then everything good starts coming into your life. You're still gonna have hiccups, because that's God's way of making sure that we're being challenged. You can't just have everything go good. In fact, I think you have to have, you get certain things going good in your life, some other things are going to fall apart. But how are you going to handle that? Are you going to fall back into an addictive mindset, or are you just going to say, "Oh, you know what? It's not perfect. I'm just going to work around it. I'm humbled and blessed that this is good in my life, and maybe I have a hiccup now with this, but I'm just going to keep moving forward." And I'm excited, man. This is all good energy that's been on the call.
This is a classic Dan Januzzi motivational speech here.
I can't help it. And I also want to talk about our sponsor, water.
Yeah, classic sponsor water.
And for those people that one thing that changed, like really secured my mindset was I did, and I mean I normally don't give shout outs to people, but I gotta give credit where credit's due. I did read a book I got sent to me. There's a gentleman out there, his name's Mark Jennison. Jennison. It's like Jennison. You might see him on Facebook. He runs commercials. He talks about alcohol being a thief. He runs like a similar platform about sobriety, and it's the name of the book I believe is called. It's 118 pages. I was so intrigued in it, I blew through it in 2 days. And I picked apart and I wrote my own cliff notes in it, stuff like that, and where I identified my old mindset versus my new mindset. And it's more or less about, I mean, he charges quite a significant amount of money for him to life coach you. He targets a lot of entrepreneurs, stuff like that. But he did, and I give him credit for this. He did give me his book for free. Name of the book is called It's not a disease, it's a choice. That's it. Yeah. So I read the whole thing in like 2 days, and it all makes perfect sense. Like a lot of stuff that I'm identifying here today is stuff that I've gained knowledge out of that book about self-control, hiding from your past, hiding from what they label you as having a disease. I mean, when you go in the rooms of AA, they say don't be judgmental, but a lot of people are quick to identify, well, you're an alcoholic, you're an addict, you're this, you're that. Well, show me your PhD. Show me what you did positive. You're sober 20 years, but you're a miserable fuck. You tell me what you did positive in your past 20 years. You can't wait to get out of here and do something. And a lot of them fake it to make it because they need somebody to sympathize them. They need somebody to massage them and be like, oh, everything's going to be okay. No, step up to the plate. I said, I'm done being weekend. And I'm not saying that's the majority of people in AA because every meeting's different. From my experiences and from what I dealt with, that's just the impression, and that's my opinion. Like I said, AA has saved a lot of people's lives. I've got some good things out of AA, and I've also got some bad things out of AA. I mean, one thing that was taught to me by a very strong businessman, Dan knows him. He was just on Fox News. A good friend of mine, Anthony Arlotta, he's from up in the Connecticut. He used to be in the Life. He was on the phone with me for 3 hours way before I even thought about being in the auto industry, and I was in a poor mindset. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was talking, negatively about some people and stuff. And he said, Scott, I'm going to slow you down right there. And this stuck with me 2 years ago. He's like, the three worst qualities a person can have is self-pity, jealousy, and enviness. And I stand by that. And I stopped being jealous of other people. I stopped being envious of other people
Yeah.
because I identify why I'm not where I was because of the poor decisions that I made in my past. I hold myself accountable of the late start that I had in life. I hold myself accountable for what went on in those previous years and what got me to where I'm at today. It's all about identifying your wrongs and, you know, coping with, understanding that that was your past. There's nothing you can do to change it.
Right.
And the longer you hold on to that, the longer you're holding stuff out, the longer you're holding yourself back from self growth.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like you have to have faith in something. There's a lot of things that are going to be beyond your control in life, and you got to be willing to let them go.
I think it's the ownership piece. It is so hard for people to take accountability for their own flaws and their faults in life. But that vulnerability on the other side of that actually creates such a space of motivation for anybody that's ever done it, that a whole new world of possibilities opens up. Because when you allow your past to continue to pull you back, it's just a weight on your shoulders holding you back from what you could be. And it's again, props to you, man, because it's so hard to, and I've done it myself too with a lot of things, is taking ownership of where you fell short, what you screwed up in. But if you feel sorry for yourself and you stay back there, it's not going to amount to anything, because at some point people are going to stop contacting you. People aren't going to want to be around you because you're just miserable. And what people usually gave you connection through that and wanted to make you feel better. But if you stay there all the time, you play the victim mentality, you have all these things, it's not going to amount to anything. Once you take accountability for your flaws and your faults, anything you've done in life in the past, and you take that ownership, as much as it can internally hurt, the other side of that, it no longer has a power over you, and you can move forward. And it's such like a lifting feeling that, like, I wish I could shake a lot of people and just help them realize that. Because once you do, again, it's sky's the limit from there, because you're no longer held captive by it.
Well, and listen to what you just said, Sam, and what we've been talking about this whole time, what we're trying to do with our podcast, and I think it's the same direction Scott wants to do with his. It's why people like us have to come together, have these kind of conversations, and continue to fight to get a bigger following so that people know there's somebody they can reach out to. I mean, we're always talking about that when we do our podcast. Like, if somebody's out there needs help, reach out. Please reach out. I don't care if I know you personally or not. We can identify problems and we can be there to help other people out, because mindset is everything. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If your mindset is wrong and it's off, you're going to look miserable. You're going to feel miserable. You're not going to feel fulfilled. No matter how successful you are at something, there's a lot of people out there. We've had that kind of podcast where it's like you could be as successful as possible and still be a miserable person at home because there's something in your life missing. You're not hitting all of what we developed as far as, peak six stuff, where, it's got to be your spirituality, your mental aspect, your physical aspect, your emotional aspect. All of those things have to be complete. You can't just pour everything into one, because then everything else will fall apart. And eventually that one thing you're good at will also fall apart. You've got to be able to have balance, and you've got to be able to I think all of us go through it. I think everybody at some point, no matter how good their mindset is, goes through a moment. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's a few hours, maybe it's a day or two because something happened. But everybody's mindset can start to go polluted again, because the mind is the hardest thing to control for any human being. But it's the people that are able to control their emotions and control the way their mind thinks that are eventually able to become the most successful people. So I think everything we're talking about is so positive, and I'm already looking forward to any other time we're all able to get on here and talk about stuff, because I believe we all bring something to the table, and we all bring a topic to the table that if somebody's listening, it's going to grab somebody's attention and maybe help them out. And like we always talk about, seeing on our podcast, and like me and Scott always talk about when we're hanging out, we're at the gym. It's all about, if something I'm saying can even positively affect one person, then I did something good. I did something right. I put some positive energy back out into the universe. And I'm a full believer. I have faith in God. Everybody's got to have faith in something. I believe anybody, no matter what your faith is in, you've got to have faith in something to be a strong mindset person. Because if you don't have faith in some type of higher power, however it is, I believe the reason we're on this podcast together is because for some reason, God brought us together for some other thing. The way me and Sam met was not chemically organic. Me and Sam should not know each other. Me and Scott grew up in the same area, but we're 10 years apart. Like Scott was saying, he grew up in a completely different generation as far as when it comes to going out and doing all these things. But there's a reason why we came together and why there's a strong bond between each of us individually. And again, it's because it's all positive energy and we're putting positive energy out into the world. So, just wanted to jump in and say that.
Well, I think we're a little bit running out of time. So this has been good, guys, and I appreciate Scott. Appreciate your time. Any last parting words? You want to give us a little bit of detail? How people can look you up and follow you and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. One last topic I want to talk about, and then I'll get into the thing. So one thing I did learn from AA, and I apply today, that was a good tool for me, is two things actually. Number one, and this is something I still struggle with to this day, and me and Dan both agree on this, is patience. You got to be patient. You got to trust the process. You got to have faith. Sometimes you got to take a seat on the bench to fully reestablish yourself. You knock out the FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. You're not missing nothing because what you were doing was holding you back. So you're not missing out on nothing. You got to make sacrifices. You got to get your life back on track. So sometimes you do have to take a seat on the bench and sacrifice. Number two is keeping your side of the street clean. I'm sure there's many people, and you guys will learn this as you get into your podcasting, is you're going to get those basement gremlins that still live at home with their grandmother, unaccomplished, miserable bastards that are going to comment, on our thing and say, hey, what do these guys know? Who are they? Well, you know what? I'm worried about my side of the street. So, those people that want to come on your side of the street and want to give you opinions about what you said or what you did, you got to watch whose opinions you value. And this is the advice I'm giving to people. Don't listen to everybody you talk to. And, you got to value the right people's opinions. You got to value what the positive side of it is and not the negative. So keeping your side of the street clean and understanding where your part is in everything will gain you really good success.
And it's a matter of figuring out, right? The first step to that is figuring out who you are and who the people around you that you have as friends or family, because a lot of times it could be family being the negative part. It's truly coming to an understanding of who's there to support you and who's there, and they're not really your friend or they're not really close family because they kind of always find, those people that always find a way to say something negative when you're heading in a positive direction. And as soon as you become aware of those people and kind of separate yourself from them, that's truly when you can continually grow and grow and grow, because now you've eliminated those people in your life to have any effect on you that were doing that subtle feeding of negativity. And for those people out there listening to this, at some point you might have a conversation with yourself that's a very tough conversation. Me and Sam have had a lot of those with clients where you have to tell somebody it might be your significant other that you need to remove from your life. It might be your mother or father. Not a lot of people have that ability to sit there and consciously try to help somebody and eventually through talking identify the fact that it might be somebody that's the closest person to you that's a person you got to remove for your life, or you are going to be stuck in that same rut forever. And I think that's just very, very important to identify.
Yeah, and being receptive to corrective criticism is a huge thing. There's many people that I've helped in the past that they ended up going back down a bad road because, and I'm not saying I'm a hero, and I'm not boosting my ego or anything like that, but you'll try and see what we've seen through our own personal experiences, and yeah, you get answers like, yeah, you're probably right. Like telling them, like, listen, man, focus on your side of the street. What part did you play in this that made this part play out the way it did? There's a lot of people out there that they like the advice, but they don't apply the advice. They're not looking at their side of the street and being like, well, what did I do to cause all this? They want the advice, but they don't want to wait for the patience to reach the success or put in the hard work and put in that time that comes with it to get to where you need to be.
It's people that don't want to take accountability for themselves. So they're lacking self awareness and the ability to be accountable themselves. Once you get over that stuff, that's the ability to apologize for something. I have people I know that I've known them 30, 40 years, never heard them apologize once for something they've done, right? That's a lack of self awareness. That it's big. It's huge. It's huge what you just said.
I told people many times, like they call me for help, and I said, and I'm starting to give them advice, and they're going, yeah, like siding with maybe their significant other because they did something screwed up, and they thought I was going to side with them rather than the significant other. And I'm like, yeah, but what part did you play in it? Here's what I'm identifying. Here's what I'm seeing. You're no saint in this situation. And yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. What? Now you're just pacifying me, and you're being passive aggressive. So you know what? You either check your ego at the door, or we're going to end this conversation. And I don't care what you do from this point on. Not that I'm walking away from you, but I'm not going to sit here and condone acting like an infant and sit here and coddle you. You want to hear the truth? You want to face the facts? Here's what it is. And if you don't like it, you're not being receptive to corrective criticism, and you're not going to progress. You're going to stay in ice with bald tires and just sit there and spin.
Yeah.
You're not going to get nowhere.
I saw it I saw some on Instagram, but it's so true. The best friends are the ones that will tell you the shit that you don't want to hear.
Yep. Amen. Dude, I was just going to say the same thing.
Because
you're not a true friend. You're not a true friend if you can't have a real conversation with a friend or family member. And when they're looking for you to side with them, but you look at the whole situation, Scott, I love what you said. Like, no matter what, it takes two to tango, right? It takes two for anything. Yep. I had to start looking at myself. Like, are some of these arguments I'm getting into, whether it was with a person in a relationship, with a family member, like, wait, am I just trying to push this off? That's that self-awareness and self-accountability. I think they're two of the most important traits that somebody has to achieve for you to say, I'm a mature adult that can think emotionally, reasonably, I can reason properly. I don't want to hear about it from the majority of people, because until you get that self-awareness and self-accountability, you haven't matured into true adulthood.
Well, Dan, you know me better than anybody, and I don't think there's many people that have a reactive personality like I do. And if I can gain self-control of myself, I think anybody can.
Anybody could. Both of us, dude. I mean, that's what I went through when I was younger too, man. I mean, the amount of humps from an emotional standpoint, because we both grew up in similar family environments and obviously a similar environment to the area of the country we live in. But gaining emotional control is the proudest thing I've ever gotten to, and it's a constant work in progress, and only because Sam, knows the struggles I went through with that, because I'm a very passionate person. But you can still be passionate and have emotional control. See, I was very confused about that being younger. I justified, well, I'm very emotional because I'm passionate, because somebody said, well, Dan, you're not overly emotional, you're passionate. No. You can be passionate and still have emotional control in situations. And it's a true victory when somebody's trying to get at you and you can just sit there and walk away from it, because you're aware of sometimes there's people there's no point having a discussion with, because they're going to argue with you, even if you can prove in facts like a lawyer and stick in front of them, go, you're wrong. But it's having the emotional control to go, you know what, I'm not going to waste my time trying to have a discussion with somebody that doesn't understand facts and reality. I'm just going to move on, because those people, that's true emotional control, not snapping at somebody and beating their head in because they're just unreasonable. It's actually having the self-control to say, I can whoop this guy's ass, but I'm done having this conversation because this person is not reasonable. This person has no adult emotion, no adult reasonability, and you move on. And it's an amazing thing when you can get to that point. It's probably one of the proudest self-growth things that I've been able to do in the last 15, 20 years, is to be able to get to the point where I can just walk away from somebody. 10, 15 years ago, I couldn't do that. Somebody's being an idiot on the other side of the room. I had to be involved because I had to prove to that guy he was an idiot, or prove to that person he was an idiot. That was just the way my mindset was. So it's a ton of personal growth. And I know it's why me and Sam got together and started this life coaching business. It was because personal experience, wanting to be able to help other people and help other people identify those problems. Because until you get into the kind of business me and Sam do, you don't realize how many people that are out there that are successful, have families, have successful careers, and still struggle with this stuff daily. Until me and Sam started doing this, I never realized how many people. I just assumed, well, if you're that successful, you must have all your shit together. Doesn't mean anything. You know, maybe somebody got lucky. Maybe somebody had somebody get them into a certain position. But people struggle with this stuff every day, and everybody needs somebody.
Not to go into another subject because I know we're all trying to end this, but we keep just getting into good stuff, and I want to grab it while it's there. So I was watching a it was on TV the other day, but it was a, a minister, a priest, or a pastor, one of them doing a reading from the gospel or whatever, and he was breaking it down. And back to what you were saying, Dan, is he was saying like, obviously like, you go back in the Bible, nobody knew what Facebook was going to be, but he said like, you going browsing on social media and being envious and jealous of other people, or looking at from what you just said, like, not knowing what that other person's going through. This person might be on Facebook to deflect their insecurities, posting that they're on a trip to Disney or they're in the Bahamas. They just bought a Porsche. They did this, they did that, and most people that meets the eye, they'd be like, "Oh man, I want that, I want that, I want that." But that's a whole nother subject. We can go into it another time. The point of it is that you don't know truly deep down. Everybody thinks that would be like portrayed as the perfect life. This guy's got a good looking wife. He's got everything he can ask for. But they don't know, like, they're the same people that you read about 6 months down the road. I don't understand. The guy had everything. He killed himself because people don't know what other people are going through. That guy might go home every day and him and his wife might bash it out verbally at each other in front of their kids. He may have an underlying substance problem. His wife might have an underlying substance problem. Nobody's life's perfect. And to prejudge people based upon bragging on social media about what it is you have, you shouldn't prejudge people based off of just social media and what portrays to meet the eye, because we go back to the old phrase, you can't judge a book by its cover.
No, and dude, even what you said about Anthony Arlotta telling you those three things, right? Those three things you listed are part of what's considered the deadly sins in the Bible. So I don't care what your faith is, but those are things that if you are jealous, envious, any of those things that are considered the deadly sins, your life's going to be corrupted. Your mindset's going to be corrupted. You're not going to have emotional control. You're going to worry more about what other people have than just focusing on your own life and being appreciative of whatever good might be in your own life. And the second you're able to separate from, I'm no longer worried what anybody else has in my life. I'm just worried about taking care of my family, the people that are close to me, and anybody comes to me and asks me for help. I don't care about the house I live in. I don't care about the car I drive. And you know this. I mean, both of you guys know this. So like, I've changed over 15, 20 years because I find those things are all materialistic and it doesn't get you anywhere in life. The best feeling in the world to me is when you're able to positively affect somebody's life, whether it's a family member, a friend, a client, somebody you just know, somebody that just comes up to you for no reason and asks for help. That's the best feeling that I get left with, period.
Hypothetically speaking, I mean, right now, I mean, I can't prove this is a fact, but I mean, it's definitely a possibility. There could be somewhere in this country right now, there could be hundreds of them, people that are millionaires laying in a hospital bed waiting to die on hospice or have a terminal illness that would trade their fortune tomorrow to get another year to live and be a mediocre guy or live a normal life of just being healthy. So just when you think that like materialistic items and everything like that is what creates the happiness within you, sure, it's a token of gratitude, and some people aren't appreciative of things as others because they had it easier than others and they didn't really have to work as hard. But who are we to judge them, and why should we care? What we should just focus on is, back to what I was saying, keeping our side of the street clean and worry about what's on our side of the street.
Absolutely. And I know Sam's trying to, we can run on. This is the kind of
I'm in no rush, man. We can keep going. I just wasn't sure if you guys had to go or not.
Well, no, and my big thing is this is why, it's been such a big deal wanting to get, all three of us on a conference call like this or a Zoom call, is because I just think so much information can get put out there, and we'll each trigger each other into a lot of positive conversations, and We definitely have to do this again and do it sooner than later
Yeah.
and make this more of a regular thing, because I just think there's a lot of people out there that need help. Might be some people that'll listen to 30 seconds to this, 5 minutes, no minutes. It doesn't matter. But if anybody gets on here and we can positively affect somebody, I mean, that's what I want to do. I will say my phone's about to die, and without me checking, I'm gonna probably, if I cut out, it's because my phone's dead.
Cool. Well,
I tell you, with that, you guys can find me on Instagram, Scott Stuch, SCOTTSTUCH. Same thing on Facebook. And as of right now, you can find me on YouTube with Steppin, STEPPIN, up with Stuch. It's WIT, then STUCH. That will be getting changed in the next month. And that's where you guys can find me temporarily. You'll see me on my social media promoting the pages. And that's where you can find me. You guys want to take it from
awesome.
there?
Thanks, Scott. It was awesome having you on. Yeah, we definitely have to do this again because I feel like this was very productive for at least just us, but everybody else hopefully ends up listening afterwards.
Absolutely.
So
Good stuff, guys. All right, we'll see you guys.